Hi, I'm Stunning Stella Cheeks.
And I'm the Enigma Aaron Klein.
And this is
Not Your Demographic.
We used to be a feminist wrestling podcast.
Shockingly, we'd rather talk about literally anything else now.
Welcome to the podcast.
Hi.
Hi, everybody.
Aren't you glad that we waited?
Yeah, I'm extremely glad that we waited because we would have had some kind of podcast that was like all about hope and shit.
Mm-hmm. Just like last time. Like, oh, nope.
Learned our lesson.
Yep. Put it in the newsletter. Fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, won't get fooled again.
Yeah. So should we just start with the rant? Should we just skip the how are yous?
Yeah, let's just do the rant. Let's get the rant the fuck out of the way, honestly.
The election.
The election happened. That was the thing that happened.
That's the rant. The election.
Yep. Lots of reasons that we don't need to rehash. I think a lot of people have been living inside of this, I think as I put it in the newsletter, plunge into despair, I think was the exact phrase that I used, and which is what it felt like the first couple days, honestly. I am glad that we have enough space now that, like, not good. Things aren't good, but I'm less out of the stunned like part of it. I'm not shocked, I guess, that our country hates women and black people so much, but
And queer people, trans people.
well, I just mean the nominee specifically,
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
that a felon rapist could beat a woman twice, 2 times is horrifying. But again, like, not surprising. I've lived in this country for 36 years. Like, it just felt stunning, really, more than anything else. Part of it is that we live in a blue enclave. I know that that's part of it.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like everybody's seen everything go around, but it is just the amount that people are willing to overlook for their own like comfort or perceived comfort. Because people are like, oh, he's gonna be good for the economy, blah blah blah. It's like he wasn't. Why do you think he's gonna
Right.
be good again? I don't know. It's hard to rehash everything because this country is so fundamentally broken, and it's just hard to like not succumb to despair, but obviously despair is not helpful both on a micro and a macro level.
Mm-hmm.
But also the hashtag good white liberals who every 4 years are like, no, we fight or whatever. It's
Oh
like,
my
why don't
God.
you do stuff? Or people who think that the presidential elections are the be all end all. I mean, and also like this race was on Democrats to lose and they lost it.
Yeah.
They ran a terrible campaign.
It was so
It
good.
started off good.
It started off so good, and then fucking strategists were like, stop saying weird. It's alienating people. You pull back from this. Move further to the right. Like, no, motherfuckers. How many times do we have to have these exact same fucking results of we tried to meet them to the right? Let's go to the center voter. Like, are you
No.
guys fucking
The
crazy?
center voter, like 75% of the time, is still going to go to the right. So why don't you appeal to your base? You know why they win? Because they appeal to their crazy ass base.
And
So
they're good
appeal
at
to your crazy ass
messaging.
base.
Also, like, all of this, like, oh, old world sentimentality about how bureaucracy should run. Motherfuckers, like, I feel very frustrated because I, like you, have followed politics and understand how the fucked up government works in a lot of ways. And there are so many people who still, even to this point, a couple of days ago, were like, well, there's all of these lifers, there's all of these bureaucratic people. And I was like, do you not understand what the first fucking page of Project 2025 is? They're gonna fire all of those people. Oh, well, they can't. Motherfucker, he's gonna. Like,
Yeah.
it's so frustrating to me how many people are just so willing to be like, I saw it written down somewhere as, people think Trump won't be able to promise the things that he wants to do, but he will because he'll do them illegally. And people didn't believe Kamala that she would be able to give them things that were good, and so they just didn't vote for her. And it's like, if you don't believe either candidate is going to do the things they say, vote for the one who's not a fascist. I don't care. Like,
Yeah.
that's the whole deal. It's very frustrating to watch people after all this time still like, oh, we can just hand wave it away. Government will protect us. How? Like, it makes me very angry.
So I do, while I disagreed with it in the like, in the way that we're fucking our country has like programmed us to be like the lesser of two evils, lesser of two evils. Um, but like I do get why, for instance, in Michigan, there's like a very large Muslim population, and they were like, yeah, we're not going to vote for anybody.
Oh, I understand people who
Yeah,
don't.
abstain. Right.
Yeah,
Well, and
absolutely.
that's a lot of the poll numbers and stuff too. It's like it's not that he won by more.
They both lost.
It's that we lost so many votes. So many
Yes.
people didn't vote because they were like, this is I feel like this isn't a thing that will, I can't vote for somebody who's a genocidal maniac, essentially.
Part of it too is that
So I
people
get it
feel.
while I understand.
Yeah, abstaining for stuff like that, I totally understand. I mean more like I don't think that Trump will actually deport people, but I don't think Kamala will actually give me a 4% guarantee on my tax rate. Like, if you're at those two things, literally always vote for the one that's not fascism.
Yeah.
And, if you are truly an undecided voter with low information, I don't understand how you could even look at either of these things and be like, well, they're both not telling the truth, so I'll just pick this fucking dictator. I think that there's a lot to be said, especially in people in swing states where your vote matters in a way that it lovingly shouldn't. Like, all of our
Yeah.
votes should fucking matter.
All of
And
our votes should matter. But this is wild that this is the first election that Republicans have won like a popular vote
in
in.
fucking 30 years or something,
Yeah.
maybe even longer than that.
I think it was smaller than that. I think it was like 20 or whatever.
I don't even remember.
It doesn't matter. Maybe it's 30.
A
Who cares?
generation. A
A long time.
generation. It is just. I don't understand why voting isn't compulsory like in Australia. I don't understand why everyone's not required to do it.
Yeah.
Well, I was gonna say too, with when you move to the right, everyone just moves further to the right. If you're appealing to any right sensibilities, you're gonna get sucked into that vote. I don't understand why Democrats especially, but going forward, we need a fucking strong progressive party, and it needs to be rooted in the non-voters. That's who doesn't fucking vote. Are
Yeah.
people who want progressive politics and policies and things that actually fucking help them and their neighbors and their friends. Democrats don't know how to message for that anymore, and the only way to pull us out of this is to get people who aren't involved and to make them feel like they haven't been disenfranchised.
Yeah.
It's a huge part of the problem is that because these swing states, which are this year, this handful, it used to be fucking Kansas, Iowa used to I wonder what it's like to be in Iowa and to have mattered for decades.
And
then
not matter anymore.
This year, you didn't matter a fucking crumb. No one gave a shit about your caucus. Nobody gave a fuck about where you were going to land. And welcome to the rest of the country. And the idea that the popular vote is bad and should not be the only thing is because then it only comes to a couple states. Guess what? It already does that. I don't want corn deciding what my fucking president is. And if the states are better and people in them are voting blue because of that, maybe the other states should fucking be like that. And it's so frustrating.
Yeah. I mean, I don't want to totally shit on. It's hard to
No, again,
yeah,
it's the disenfranchised minute of it too. And it's not just literally the millions of people who are actually disenfranchised.
Yeah.
It's that you feel disenfranchised because you're in a state.
Fear mongering and fascism, right?
Yeah, and you feel that way because you're in a state where you're told no matter what way you're blue, no matter what way you vote, this is going blue, that's going red. That is a sense of disenfranchisement that isn't at the ballot disenfranchisement, but you as a voter are disenfranchised enough that you're I don't care, so I'm not going to fucking vote. And that is a fundamental problem in our country.
People who believe oh, well, nothing really changes. And it's yeah, things do change.
They do. People don't remember that fucking week 1 of his first presidency was the Muslim ban. Don't people remember rushing to the fucking airports?
No, our whole system in media and stuff is so quick to, I worked really hard to stop consuming news in an unhealthy way. I used to, watch news all the time, read news all the time, political news specifically. Listen to several podcasts, and I still stay informed, but I do it in a way that is less detrimental to my fucking brain. And also helps me think more clearly about issues and whatever instead of being bombarded over and over. But yeah, we have this very small memory, and we also I feel like this whole country, this world is truly little frogs in a pot. Even though I learned recently that that's not true. They can absolutely feel themselves dying. They just can't do anything about it. Which actually feels like a more
I was going to say
metaphor.
that. So here, okay, yeah.
And it can feel very like, hopeless, helpless, despair, all of that stuff. But I also am trying to hold on to some of the like good things that happened. Like there's a trans person going to be in
Yes.
Congress. There's more women, more black women, not by a lot, but for America, which
Mhm.
is stupid. But also like it's so wild to me that in these like quote unquote red states or whatever, progressive policies.
Yes, I was just gonna say the same
Yeah,
thing. Like,
progressive policies when they are not tied to a candidate or a fucking cult of personality or whatever, overwhelmingly poll well and win.
yes,
And the only times that they lose, not only times, but like, the whole Florida abortion thing, it's like a 60% threshold. Like that's not democracy.
yeah, like
That's fake.
it anywhere else it won. It's just that Florida is so deeply, deeply gerrymandered and disenfranchised.
No,
Like,
but like if they have a 60% threshold, they got over 50% to protect abortion rights, but Florida has this backward you have to get 60% and they got like 57,
that's right, it was 57. I remember that
which
now.
is absurd. So the no's who are low 40s get to decide for everybody else, which is like, LOL,
That's
that's what
what
abortion
America is
is.
like.
Yeah. Yeah, so it's just hard sometimes, but I have to try and remember that like, yeah, if we just change and I don't consider myself a Democrat. Like
No,
I
I
don't yeah.
haven't for a long
I don't
time.
consider myself a Democrat. I don't consider myself a liberal. I consider I don't know, socialist.
I tell people
um
I'm a radical leftist,
yeah.
which it's like, "Oh my god, I can't believe that." But like, what does that means I want people to be able to vote at 14 when they can drive and work a job because
Yeah.
that's literally taxation without representation. The actual thing this country was fucking founded on, like
Yeah.
fundamentally broken, absolutely broken. But yeah, I hate it. I hate it when my Republican family members are like, "Well, you're a Democrat." And it's like, "I will fight you outside right now if you think I'm a fucking Democrat." I'm not.
Yeah.
Haven't been for a very long time. I don't know if I ever was, to be honest.
Yeah. Well,
Oh,
I don't have a lot of relatives that I talk to who
I don't really anymore.
vote that way or who vote at all. I don't know. I have like a lot of white trash family that doesn't vote, which is fine. Keep your vote to yourself. If you can't vote in a nice way, then keep your vote to yourself. But yeah, I mean, they all learned to not talk politics with me a long time ago. I remember how old were we when um Gore Bush
Oh
happened?
my God.
2000, so I would have been 11.
Hmm.
I remember being at a wedding and one of my Republican uncles like being like, well, if nine, so I guess I was 12. He was like, well, if 9/11 happened and Al Gore was president, then he would have cared more about the trees in Central Park than the people. And I, as a 12-year-old at a wedding reception, lost my mind,
Good for you.
yelled at this full adult to the point where my grandpa, who ostensibly believed or agreed with me, was like, you gotta chill. And I was like,
I won't.
he was like, let's take a walk. And I was like, I'll fight this a grown adult. Yeah, so I don't consider myself a Democrat, so it's hard to be like, well, we need to change
You know?
when it's like royal we, like the
Yeah.
world needs to change. I just don't it's just hard to like I just fundamentally don't understand caring about somebody else's um race, sex, sexuality, like gender, like don't you have a job?
Right?
Don't
What
you have friends? Don't
don't
you have a family? Don't you have hobbies?
this is
How do you have
like
time to care about people you don't even know?
that was the whole thing, like, the whole fucking reason Tim Walz was chosen as the VP candidate is because he was the one that was like, "What's with these weirdos? Mind your own fucking business." And, like, that's true. That is a thing that, like, I think was really hitting the nail on the head for people who were like, "Yeah, this is fucking weird.
Super
They're being
weird.
super fucking weird." And, like, we I said this to my husband and he was like, "I don't know that you should be saying this." And I was like, "But it's true." Like, we are at such a weird time where politicians have forgotten that they need to be fucking scared.
Yeah.
And like, we are at a point, Michael was like, "I don't know, political violence is such a different thing now. The cops are all fucking fascist," as though that hasn't always been the
Yeah, it's
case.
like political violence is not that different
Political
now.
violence is a tool of the right almost exclusively right now, which is bad. Like they
Yeah.
should not be the only people who are allowed to have a call on fucking political violence, which is fucked up. But also like don't surrender in advance, and that's how it feels a
Yeah.
lot with me. And
Don't comply in advance.
yes,
Like anything bad that can happen and maybe will happen in 2025 hasn't happened yet.
protect yourselves now, but don't censor yourselves and don't comply in advance in that. Like there are ways you can keep yourself safe, which you could have been doing before. Don't have your name connected to shit on the internet that you wouldn't want like your grandma to come up to you with. You know what I mean? Like there are ways to that we should have always been being safe on the internet, and I think that people should really assess if they are
It's
living up to
almost like we
that.
should teach media literacy and cybersecurity as like fucking baseline elementary school.
Absolutely. I fully fucking agree with that. That's a huge part of this is that our media literacy is so fucked up. But I think, and this is just my prediction, I have a feeling that politicians have forgotten so thoroughly what unions actually fucking are. And the second that they take away overtime protections, I think people are going to start getting beaten in the road.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know why people think what happened 100 years ago with unions when they beat people to death in the road because the working conditions were so bad. Why they think 100 years ago they would have done that, and now today with more weapons and more availability of information instantly at your fingertips to know who to point things at immediately because of the internet. Why are we putting these things together? This seems like a deeply, deeply insane time to be like, you know what I'm gonna piss off? Unions, the Teamsters. You know who I really want to fuck with right now? A bunch of people who do physical labor and are angry. Like
Yeah.
that I think is what blows my mind the most is it's like, how do it's because we don't have any media literacy. Like, how do we exist inside of this
It's because
history?
Democrats like Democrats started taking unions for granted first.
Oh, 100%. They were like, oh, we're all blue
And
collar.
I'm coming
Like,
from like a union family, so
oh,
like
yeah,
we're
absolutely.
from
Fucking,
Michigan. We
yeah,
come from union
exactly.
families.
Exactly. Like, Michigan is a fucked up, weird place to be from politically, especially because of all of the unions and the way that
And the
people,
UP.
yeah, and the way that people like vote against their own interests. But like, there is never a time in my life where I was like, you know what's bad? Unions. Like, even though
Yeah.
my parents weren't part of them, like, unions are a thing for a reason, and Democrats fucked up 60 years ago by not understanding like we really need to
Gotta
keep people
invest in
inside of
it.
this.
Yeah.
Yeah. People don't understand. Young people do not even understand what pensions are. Don't understand how they work, have no
Yeah.
fucking clue
Because
what they are
nobody has them
because
anymore.
no one has them anymore. And like again, Tim Walz is a great example of that. Like when his financial disclosures were released when he was officially nominated as the VP, people were like, he has nothing in fucking savings. And it's like, yeah, because he makes enough money from his pension from being a public school teacher and being in the military that he doesn't fucking have to have a bunch of savings.
Yeah.
But we as a generation just fundamentally don't
And also
understand how
we
that
can't
works.
and we as a country can't understand a politician who doesn't have a fat bank account.
Yes, it
It's
just
like, no,
doesn't
that makes
seem real.
he's a really good public servant.
Exactly. The fact that I didn't know who the fuck he was, even like he was governor during the George Floyd murders. And
Yeah.
the fact that his state trusted him again after that little amount of time speaks a lot to who he is as a governor and probably as a person too. But the fact that like that
Not
wasn't
want to
some
deify him. He's not perfect.
no. I
Whatever.
just mean like as
Yeah.
a politician that I didn't know his fucking name.
I only knew
And
because my sister-in-law lives in Minnesota.
but like that, I feel like that to go through something like that as a state at a level that rippled across both the country and the world, and to still come out of it as a politician that people like, I know Ron DeSantis's name because he's a huge fucking piece of shit.
Yeah.
Like, I didn't know who the fuck he was. And like, that's what politicians should be like. They should be important and useful in their communities, and they should understand that when fucked up shit happens in your state and people come to your door and say, you better fucking fix this,
Yeah.
that they can do that without having to be like, let me also raise money off of this. You know what I mean? Like, that is a fundamental rot within our political system. Also, Nancy Pelosi, retire, bitch. Like, that is
Chuck
the
Schumer,
retire,
don't ever
bitch.
text me.
There needs to be a maximum age limit. Can you pass a cognitive test?
Yeah, but that gets
Like,
also into like
you know, it gets
eugenics
into
and
like it's ableism and it's ageism. It shouldn't be about actually passing tests. It should be just a hard line limit on your age.
yeah, you
Like,
have a young one, you should have an old one. And you
absolutely.
and not as like a you can't do it, but also as like we should have a country that has pensions, that has safety nets. Like people shouldn't have to work till they die.
Yes.
So it could also be framed as like a yeah, you don't have to work anymore. We as a society take care of you. And we actually need people who are, you know, of a certain age demographic in politics because they overwhelmingly represent like the majority or whatever, right? Like it's wild. It's broken. It's
It's
stupid.
so broken.
But also like again, you know, grief and whatever, but like you can't despair is non-action. Despair is cyclical. You can't you have to find like ways of fighting back or not fighting back, supporting your community and supporting your micro and macro communities, like your family and your friends, but then also like your school district
Yeah.
or your, I mean, we want to talk about public schools, everybody, buckle up.
Ooh,
Um,
boy, do we live in a place
yeah,
for that.
but like I told, you know, my husband, like we're trying to start a family or whatever, but I was very straight up from the get, like before we even decided to have kids. I was like, if we have kids, they will go to public school, full stop, the
Same.
end. There's no other option. And if that is not a deal breaker for you, then like that's a deal breaker for me.
Mm,
Like, you know,
yep.
you have to invest in your community. You can't isolate. You can't be despair. You can't give in to despair. And I mean community, big C, little c, you know.
Yeah, totally. Like, I think that's part of it too, is that you recognize what in your own community you can do. And I think another thing to your point about despair being cyclical and like ways to break through that. One of the things that Michael and I talked about, which I'm like not even totally there yet, I'm getting there myself, is writing down action points of what can I do right now that will make me feel better and
Mhm.
like renew my passport, a thing I've been putting off, follow up with my doctor about my tubal ligation, like shit that I could do right away,
Yeah.
and then write bigger goals like find a committee to be a part of, find a place that we can volunteer our time as
Yeah.
more like long-term like coping strategy going forward where like right now I
And
think
also just like a better way if all of this terrible stuff inspires people to be better citizens and community members, is it worth it? No, but it's a good thing and a bad
yeah,
thing.
absolutely. It's like I talk to my therapist a lot about non-optional relationships and how you decide you want to deal with them. Like they're in my opinion, I think sometimes what happens is people are like, "Well, I don't want to regret it. I don't want to regret my decision." And like, guess what? There's regret on both sides. You'll regret it for doing it or you'll regret it for not doing it. And what you really need to figure out is what one am I more willing to live with? And like regret is inevitable. And like I feel like I'm almost always going to feel more regret for having not tried where like I know some people are like I will feel regret if I try and I fail in a way that will be destabilizing. Like that's a recognition too. You
Yeah.
really have to play with your own sense of self and like regret is inevitable. What will help you move forward inside of regret too?
Yeah, I would also like to say like I am really personally grateful for being in therapy for so many years and working on specific like I don't know, grounding stuff or like what can I actually do, things that I can do, things that I can change. And like I obviously was very sad and scared and all of the emotions, but the days after I had like a lot of tools in my toolbox to help calm and regulate and all of that stuff and like very great. I was telling my therapist about it. I have therapy on Thursday, so a couple days after the election, and I was kind of saying all the stuff that I was thinking about and whatever. And my therapist said, "I don't know if I can say this, but I just want you to know I'm really proud of you." And I was like,
Oh, that's
"Thank
so
you."
nice.
But yeah, and part of that too was like I me and Nick talked about it kind of the same thing about like what are our I was like, I want to get a more aligned, like fundamentally our values align, but like we give money, we do volunteer, but like it's very haphazard how we do it. And I was like,
Mhm.
I'd really like to be more strategic in the money that we give, in the time that we give,
Mm-hmm.
etc. Because it's like we're already doing it, but I want to do it in a more like I want to drill down and be like, what is more impactful?
Mm-hmm.
Also, this is the thing that helps for me. There are a lot of causes that are valuable, valid, and need support. You cannot do them all. So you really do have to pick one or two that you can put all of your energy into
Mm-hmm.
and trust that other people are doing the same.
Absolutely. You're fully right.
Like for me, the two that I'm kind of focused on and like drilling down in is education and literacy, and then unhomed populations. Like those are the two places that I am like focusing, like where my money goes, where
Mm-hmm.
at least part of my time goes right now. I'm looking into other ways to do it, but like those are two really important things to me that I want to focus on. And then like we've been talking on and off about it, but I was like, I want to actually get really serious about this is making our household a lot more sustainable and environmentally friendly. And a big thing of that, like our big household New Year's resolution or whatever, is to wean ourselves off of the use of Amazon, like specifically Amazon.
Yeah, dude.
And you know, LOL, we call it the devil's marketplace or whatever. And like, but so many people, even like, leftists and stuff use it. And it's like a thing that,
It is actually unavoidable in some
yeah,
ways too, which is sucks. I did for 6 months in 2023. I went
yeah,
without using Amazon, and then I literally kept finding stuff where it was like, you can only get this on our
yeah,
Amazon store, which fucking blows.
yeah. And so like trying to at least it would be ideal if we could eradicate it, but if we can't eradicate it, like, can we get it to a point where it's like absolutely minimal and
Right.
it's in just those cases where I can't find this anywhere else,
Right. Yeah.
that type of thing. And then also evaluating, I can't find this anywhere else. Do I actually need this?
Yes, absolutely. It
Right?
made me do that a lot. It literally came down to like, this is so stupid, but like I need a specific kind of lotion,
Yeah.
and they started only selling it through their CeraVe, through their marketplace on Amazon. And it was like, okay, well, if I can't go to your manufacturer and even buy it like in bulk, like I have to go through this.
Yeah.
It's hard, and like that is the whole point of Amazon, is
Yeah.
that they've
It's a monopoly,
monopolized
right?
everything so that you like have to use them basically.
Yeah. So we're gonna try to do that. We're gonna
We have
try and
said,
compost more. Like that's the big thing is like
nice. That's what our neighbors do.
consuming less and composting. Those are like, again, I can't change everything in my household. I can't make it
Hmm.
the most sustainable place ever. But the two things that I'm going to focus on is ordering less and buying less, and then also less food waste and like composting. Like
Hmm.
those are two things that I can commit to that will be challenging but won't be detrimentally hard, but will make a big impact.
Yeah, and they're things that when you need to give yourself less pressure on and be like, I just have to order out more, or this is a time where I'm like super stressed out, or like I literally can't find this thing anywhere else and now I need it within a couple of days. Like those are the things too that you can give yourself grace on, and it's not like, I'm trying to think of a good example. Like say you sign up to do oh my god, what's it called? Abortion escorting.
Yeah.
And you're like, yeah, I'm going to do this every day. I've signed up for this every single fucking day. And then you get into it and you're like, I don't know if I can actually handle this today in this
Yeah.
moment. And it feels like that has a lot more weight. Where as opposed to the stuff that you're doing in your own home, you also learn your own relationship with what's hard. What is hard for me to do this? And at what points do I pull back into old behavior? How do I get out of that?
Yeah,
Like,
and
it's a really good way to start.
how do I like support that? Like, oh, okay, what can I change on a fundamental level that will support the values that I have?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, so I think coming up with action points is like really valid. But also again, being specific and strategic.
Yes,
And
absolutely.
and in an attempt to A, make sure you can follow up on those things, and
Hmm.
then B, also so you don't burn yourself out because you can't do anything if you burn out.
Yep,
Trust
absolutely.
me. Speaking from deep experience.
Yes.
Um yeah, and that's actually I think that's a good kind of transition because one of the things that I kind of have also been thinking about is it's very easy to be very reactionary and say, I'm gonna do this and I made this action point list and blah blah blah. But like you said, sometimes there's times when you can't do that and whatever. But I kind of wanted to institute both in my like non-podcast friendships or whatever, but I think it would be helpful for listeners and for us to kind of institute like a check-in on our podcast too, especially because we only do it once a month. Be
Mhm.
like, hey, what have you done this month? And it can be little as
Yeah.
like, I set up a recurring $5 donation to an abortion fund.
Yeah.
But it could be like, hey, I joined a committee or whatever.
Right.
And I think it's, or if it's like, hey, I really couldn't do anything today or this month, it can be like, well, how can I support you? How
Right.
can
Yeah.
our community support you? How can listeners support you or
Yeah.
whatever? And I definitely want to make place for that in our Discord. But I think that check-in without judgment is actually really important because
Yes.
again, fire in your belly, you can be like, uh, we need to do all of this stuff. But then like that can wane, you can get life gets in the way, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So I think instituting again non-judgmental check-ins with people to be
Mhm.
like, hey, your action items, have you done any? Or
Right.
like, is there a way that I can help you do one? Or do you want to, oh, like for a friend, for instance, a friend was like, I really want to volunteer, but we only have one car and my partner needs it more than I do. And I'm like, okay, well, let's find a time where I can drive us somewhere and do
Mhm.
something. Like that's again about actually building community.
Yeah, absolutely.
That
That's a
kind of
great idea.
yeah. So I kind of want to institute that both again on a macro level and a micro level, but I think it would be helpful to do as a podcast. And then also like if our listeners want to like tell us in the Discord or email us and be like, "Hey, I started doing this thing and I find it
Yes.
valuable," or like, "Here's a suggestion for a place that I started donating or volunteering at or whatever," or "I'm running for this, you know,
Mhm.
office. I'd love to get like endorsement or support." Like
Yeah,
this
absolutely.
can be again, it's me and Aaron just talking, but it can be like a community check-in.
Absolutely.
And like I don't, our podcast isn't a political podcast. We're just political people. Because every person is political.
Everything's
Politics is
political.
yeah, like whatever. But, we are, again, leftist, socialist, whatever. So we are thinking about this stuff and we espouse a progressive lifestyle. But it's also good to check in, check your privilege, check your
Mhm.
support. That stuff is important too, because like we're not infallible. People are not infallible.
Yeah, I feel you said something that I feel like would be good to add on maybe as part of this check-in. Like, are there things that you're realizing this month that you are running up into? Like, are you finding that you feel resistant to X and like what are you doing
Yeah.
to deal with that? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, because I feel like some of what happens too is the overwhelm of it is you like kind of lash back of like, well, fuck, I don't want to do that, or this is really getting in my way. And it's like, well, just name it, just say it out loud and let's figure out, like you said, how to get past it. And so I
Yeah.
think having a non-judgmental zone is really good for that stuff too.
Yeah, and again, that also challenges you to have radical honesty and radical acceptance,
Yes.
which I know that everybody likes to weaponize therapy talk, um, especially people who are not in therapy, but that's a different podcast. But that's actually hilariously a thing I talk to my therapist about all the time. And I'm like, I'm so sick of people posting their like mental health memes when I know that they're not in therapy. Like that's weird, but it's a way to protect yourself, right? Is to use like therapy speak, be like, well, I'm actually alerted, so you can't like touch me. Um, but I just say that the reason why those words, which are like very therapy talk or whatever, have the word radical in front of them, radical acceptance, radical listening, is because they're hard.
Yeah.
And to truly listen and to truly accept, you do have to tap it into something, and I'm not saying like, let's hear out all the bigots. That's not what I'm saying at all.
No. No, almost the opposite of
Yeah.
that, actually. If you're willing to engage critically about yourself and your values and speak openly to other people about them, that's, usually
Yeah.
a certain persuasive person.
Yeah. I mean, and if you do have a lot of like bigots or in your family or your life or whatever, like again, if you have the privilege to be able to speak out against their bigotry, like it is sort of your duty to do it.
Absolutely. You know
Also,
what?
there are a lot of tools for like de-escalating those situations, and
Yes.
I would
I just took
strongly
some I
recommend.
took some bystander intervention training recently, and like it's weird because it's a lot of it was like, well, yeah, I like know this stuff, but a huge part of it is about like it. You just have to hear it and know it over and over and over, so that when it does happen, it's an instinct.
Yeah, it's
And
like I worked in therapy for years, and so when a really bad thing happened, I was able to rely on those tools because I worked on it for years.
yeah, exactly. And I feel like a thing that white people should be actively working on saying out loud is that's a weird thing to say.
Yeah.
or what the
What
fuck are
did
you
you mean?
talking?
Or just like in a not a what the fuck, again, in a like more accepting space. What did you mean by that?
Yes.
Can you
Well,
explain that to
I think
me?
it depends on
Yeah, yeah,
the level of it. I'm gonna say this straight up. Men, white men, you need to be the ones that need to learn how to say, "What the fuck did you just say?
yeah.
Why the fuck would you say that? I'm not gonna let you say that about a person that I don't even know. It doesn't even matter."
Yeah.
Like that's what that space needs to be.
If a bigot is comfortable spouting bigotry in front of you, that means that you are either inadvertently or on purpose making a space where they feel safe, and they should never feel safe.
Absolutely. If people assume that they can say that stuff to you, it's like the Nazi bar thing, right?
Yeah,
Like you are in a Nazi bar, but you say you're not a Nazi, but you're in a fucking Nazi bar.
yeah,
So like it's that same deal of like if someone feels comfortable enough to be a bigot in front of you, it's because they think that you're a bigot and you
right.
need to tell them that you're fucking not.
Yeah, and again, this goes if you, like, feel, like, physically safe
Yeah,
doing that.
absolutely. But I think you're right too. Like there is a
We're gonna die.
softer space of like, I made this racist joke, LOL, and you're like, I don't. Could you explain that joke to me? I don't totally understand it.
Yeah.
And people get uncomfortable, super uncomfortable,
Or you
because
can
they're
just pull a Ta-Nehisi Coates and be like, "Wow,
that
that's
was
racist."
racist. I have done that at parties before, and it did not go well.
Yeah.
uh, yeah, it's a thing that we as white people need to learn how to be better at.
Mhm.
To we have to reinforce.
You should just channel your inner 12-year-old Stella and be like, "I'm gonna go talk to this adult. Tell them they're wrong."
We should all strive to be 12-year-old Stella.
This kind of goes into my rave. So again, the election happened, very bad, very destabilizing. But the next day when I woke up, like I had already made a commitment to volunteer. I volunteer every Tuesday morning, every Wednesday morning. So I didn't have a choice, right? I'm like, I'm sad, but I can't actually give in to my despair or fear or whatever. I made a commitment, not just like work or whatever. It's like an actual commitment to volunteer with this organization that I feel like I talk about all the time. So it's incredible. If you're in Chicago, it's called Open Books. They're a non-for-profit that they have a bunch of bookstores, used bookstores, and then all of their money goes, it's all volunteer based, and then all of their money goes to supporting literacy. And I work in a program called Reading Buddies where we go into schools and we read with kids. And it's, incredible. And I get to bring comic books and be like, you guys want to talk about comics, right? And it's great. Um, but yeah, so I woke up and I went to reading buddies and I had like an incredible time with my students. And one of my students is like an actual genius, and we read Black Panther Marvel comics. And then my other kid, we did a bunch of like spelling games together, and it was just a way grateful that I had that because I could go do something that I value. I could be with our future generations making a
Mhm.
difference. Again, one of my two like things I want to focus on is education and literacy. So that's both something that's in line with my values. It's supporting my community. It's fun. Like it's like affirming for me. I think it's fun for them. I've only met her twice because it's new school year, so we've only been going a couple times. She gave me like a huge hug afterwards, and I was like, "Oh yeah,
Aw.
this is important." Being around people who are, on paper or whatever, like not like me or in a different neighborhood than me, and supporting each other is amazing. And I was really, really grateful for that. So like I think, and again, like I still have current donations set up from COVID, Black Lives Matter, like all of that stuff. I don't even really have to think about it. Again, one of my things is I want to be more intentional about where I put my money, but like set up a recurring donation. I know
Mhm.
money is really tight, but $5, $10, like most people can sacrifice $10 a month. And that shit that's $120 like that an organization didn't have annually, and now they have that. And
Mhm.
then you can be a $100. Most people can swing $100 a year, right? So like those recurring donations, truly like set yourself up for success,
Yeah.
right? Like those are little incremental changes, but like when shit hits the fan or whatever, like that stuff's already there for you. And then you can be more strategic or whatever. I was
Mhm.
just really grateful that I like already had something that was aligning with my could remind me and ground me like, okay, yeah, this is what's important.
Yeah.
So that's my rave. Go fucking volunteer. It's actually great. And everyone's like, "Oh, volunteering and charity work, nothing's altruistic." That's true. A lot of it's not altruistic, but like if you're doing something good and it makes you feel good, that's okay.
Yeah, you don't have
That's,
to just feel a middle state of neutral and or
yeah.
misery. Like, you can do things because they make you feel good too.
And if you volunteer somewhere and you're like, this isn't a good fit, that's okay. You can
Yeah.
go volunteer somewhere else.
100%.
And you also don't have to do it forever. You can be like, I'm going to do this program for a year and then maybe I'm going to go try something else. Like your values can change, your focus can change. Like,
The amount of time you can put into things changes, and
right.
like you can realize like, oh, I thought I had a lot of time to give, and actually that's not feasible long term. And then that's when people also decide to give more money, because
Right.
it's like, this is I've tried to do this in a way that I find is not effective to help the cause, and
Yeah.
like reassessing that, but that means trying,
Yeah.
and like literally try.
And again, I know I said most people can swing, $100 a year, which I do think is true. But also, if it's not true, you shouldn't have to feel shame about that. Like, time is money in many ways.
Mhm.
Also, if you're like super crazy disenfranchised, like, you also don't have to work as hard as people who are not. Like, I have a lot of privilege and I would like to use it.
Yeah, absolutely.
I would like to use it because I'm not like a morally defunct person, but also it's my duty as a citizen to use it.
hmm Yeah, we have a lot of civic responsibilities. It's hard that not everyone cares about
Yeah, it's
them.
weird that we don't really teach that anymore.
It's strange, isn't it? It's
Right.
almost like it's been
Hmm.
a multi-decade long process of making the electorate stupider.
Yep, 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 yep. Do you have a rave?
I do. Mine is actually not connected to the election. I Again, you should join our new newsletter. It comes out the first every month. nydproductions.substack.com. I mentioned this at the end of mine, like a day before our newsletter went out. I went to a masterclass, Bob Fosse masterclass
Oh yeah,
at
that's right.
Visceral Dance Center, which is incredible. If you're ever in Chicago, they do all kinds of great dance performances, and they also they train teens for like national competitions. And so I've been in there a couple times where there's like hundreds of teenagers. I'm like, oh my God, what's happening? But like they're a very good studio. And I used to take a great jazz funk class from a guy named Dome LaRusso. If you dance and are ever in a position to take a class from him, you should. But it's now on 8:30 at night on Tuesdays, and so I, like, can't take it anymore, and it's been hard to, like, not have a dance outlet. It's part of why I've done so many acts for Play 9. I'm like, "This is the dance I could focus on this year." But I'm on their mailing list because a newsletter is great, awesome.
We
Everybody
love
loves
a
a new
newsletter.
I love a newsletter. I love a well-executed newsletter also. Uh, but they sent out this newsletter that was, like, the title was just Bob Fosse Masterclass, and I was like, "Doink, what's this?"
Immediate sign up.
Immediate, yeah. I was like, I don't even care who's teaching it. I want to take this master class. And it was a woman. The class was taught by Kim Morgan Green, who was one of Bob Fosse's girls. And like, she was in the original Sweet Charity. She did a bunch of like all that jazz type work with him. She knew him until he died. Like, she was very close with him. There were a couple times she talked about him and like literally started to tear up. You could tell she had a very strong connection with him. And she's like, I don't know, in her 60s now, probably. Man, I'm 50, that sketch, it was fucking like that. She was up, she was ready, she was, like, running around, she was like, I don't want everyone to, like, try to outdo things, like, don't kick yourself in the head. I can still do it, but I won't." And we were like, "Oh my god." She was all
Were you
over the
like,
place.
can you though? Can we see
Oh, no,
it?
you could tell by the way she moved. I was
Well,
like,
not like can you though, but like I know you don't want, but
"Oh,
can you do it? I want to see it.
yes." I think she wanted to do it and was like, "I'm gonna fuck my knee up if I do." There was a moment where she did something and she was like, "I gotta sit down. I'm a little worried. I hurt my knee." And we were like, "Okay, Kim, whatever you need." But it was so wonderful to go and work with her. Like, she did a great job of acting both as, "Let me teach you this dance," obviously, but she did such a great masterclass job of like, "Let me talk to you about what this is really fucking like. Let me talk to you about what it's like to walk into an audition room as a professional or someone who wants to be a professional." And it was interesting to be in a room with a bunch of people who clearly were like in it, who like are dancers really, and like, I'm just fucking around. I've danced for a long time, but I'm not like doing competition. I'm not trying to get paid for dancing. That's crazy. I'm never gonna do that. But it was like cool to be in that room and have her talk about like, when you walk into an audition, know what you're good at. Do the thing that you're good at right away, because they'll look at you for 4 seconds and know either yes or no. And so you got to do it right away. And it was interesting to hear her talk about that. Like, I've seen it. I've like been around the cattle calls and stuff, but it was interesting to watch someone who's been so successful be like, don't blend. Don't do that shit that they tell you that you should do. If you're there for an audition like a Fosse thing, do your thing. You have to do it.
Yeah.
And so she did a really good job of calling out a couple of people like, your splits look fucking great. Your leaps are really good. Show these people how you're showing off a triple point turn. This is what you should be doing. Not like this individual thing, but like this is how you make yourself seen. And we were like going through the dance. A lot of it is very close, doing weird hand movements and like moving your feet a bunch. I'm like, I'm not great. So I'm always in the back of the room because I want to be able to see a lot more people. Of course, this dance turns around a bunch. So I'm like in the front at that. She's like in the back right next to me. I was like, oh my God, this is so intimidating. And we all were in rows and we were about to work on it. And she just fucking whipped around and like, we're all in these lines and I'm in this weird corridor where there's nobody else between me and the mirror because it was like the only place I could find. And she was like we are right now, directly across from me. Nobody in between us in this weird row. She just whips her head around. She goes, fix your chin. And I was like, oh my God. She was like, you look great. Your chin's too high. Lower your chin. Do a Fosse chin. And I was like, oh my God, okay. And she was like, look in the mirror. And I looked at it and I looked back at her and she went, you're doing great character work. And I was like, oh my God. And then she pointed right at me, right into my soul, and went, you look like you have a secret. And I was like, Fosse approves of my dancing. This is the greatest thing that's ever happened. It was so good. It was so affirming. And it was so clear too that like, she clocked me immediately as you're not a dancer like
Yeah.
everybody else. And I realized halfway through, I was like, I'm the only person with like heavily visible tattoos. It's really clear who I am here. And so it felt even better that she like recognized immediately you're a character actor.
Yeah.
This is, you know how to do this part of this dance because you know what character is. And I was the only person that she said had good character. She told everybody else, stop fucking smiling so much. It was so good. It felt so good to like go into this environment where I had very low expectations. Like you would say with archery, like I'm not great, but I love that for me.
Yeah,
Like,
because it's the best.
and it was nice to go in and feel like I'm just doing this because I want to. I really just want to go and I want to move my body. I barely remembered what a pas de bourrée or a PK turn was, but like once we were into it, I was like, okay, this is fine. I can do this. And it felt good to just let go and be like, I don't know what I'm doing in this part. Whatever, fuck it. I'm not trying to get paid here. So it was, I think it's something that I want to bring into the other side of the election too, is like, I'm not gonna let these motherfuckers rob me of joy.
Yeah.
Like, even though like I want to do action and even though I want to like make sure that I'm being a civically engaged person, I refuse, after having gone through such a massive postpartum event, to let motherfuckers like that make me fucking depressed like that again. I refuse to let it happen. And so, like, it felt very good right before the election to have this affirmation of, like, I can do this thing because it's fun. I can find joy in this thing, even though it's supposed to be a big deal. It doesn't actually have to be. Like, it just felt so good. And it, like, carried over past this, which was really nice.
Yeah, I mean, people say it all the time, but it is true. Like, joy is an act of resistance because fascists want you to be afraid
Yep.
and want you to be a mindless drone worker,
hmm
right? Like, joy is important. Again, you can't do anything if you burn yourself out.
Right. Exactly.
So
Yep.
it's important to find that balance, which is hard sometimes.
Don't let these motherfuckers take everything from you. I refuse to give up the color red. I'm so tired of it. I will not let them steal a primary color from you fucking once again. I love the color red. I'm so tired of it being this like, oh, well, if you wear red, you're a fucking Republican. No, I'm taking that shit back. Fuck them.
Yeah, that's so stupid.
I
Well,
hate
you wear
it.
blue, you're a Democrat. That's
Right?
dumb.
Fuck off.
It's just a color. Stupid. I don't know. Do you want to do books or
Do you have one?
games or yeah, I read a book. I read God fuck what is it called? It's a Caitlin Starling book.
Oh, The Luminous Dead?
No. I've already read that.
I know, I saw that Bobby hated it. I was like, I should read it. I have it. I just haven't read it
He
yet.
hated it?
Yeah, didn't you read it? You don't read the news. He had a whole thing at the top of it where he was like,
I
I
don't read
read.
his part of the newsletter.
Yeah, no kidding. I read it
He
because I put
puts
it
in after me so that I don't. I'm not gonna,
Yes. Yeah, that was what he talked about was I read Luminous Dead by Caitlin Starling and then in capital letters, I did not like it.
That's so wild. It's so good.
It's funny that you guys have such different tastes in books because there was also what was the
He didn't like the Southern Book Club's
Yes.
Guide to Slaying Vampires.
Yes, that's right. Vehemently did not like it.
The Luminous said it's really good.
I haven't. I have to read. Now, I'm
God.
really interested to read it knowing that you guys had such different reactions to
I
it.
cannot imagine hating it. It's so good. I read Yellow Jessamine by Caitlin Starling. It's a novella that she wrote. And it's good if you like it's short, if you want something short, it's like 130 pages. It's got magical plant fungi stuff. So if you like that type of gothic-y horror, light lesbianism,
You know,
we love it.
as it is.
So I really enjoyed that. And then I also read Dark Knights of Steel, which is the Tom Taylor Elseworlds where the DC universe are like medieval knights. And it was really good. And I caught up on the new series of it that's following Slade and fucking Swamp Thing, which is hilarious to me, but whatever. But yeah, so I really enjoyed that. I love all of Elseworld stuff. I love an AU, and I think DC does a really good job, a much better job than Marvel, making fun comics that you don't need to know a million things about to go in. Even if there's characters you don't know, you're like, okay, well, I get their purpose in this
Mhm.
story or whatever. And
That's
it's
what
just
reading
fun.
DC versus Vampires was like. I told you, like, the first one, I mostly recognized the characters, but was like, there are some people I don't know, but I could like figure it out. Where the second half was like, I feel like I need to know a lot more
Yeah.
about who these fucking people are. And like, I found the ending so confusing because I was like, I don't know who these people are
Well, it was also
exactly.
because like you needed to read the tie-ins and they didn't do a good job of like
Yes.
I'm really 50-50 about that because I feel like you should have to read the tie-ins to justify why there are so many tie-ins in these events and like make them actually worth the money that you're spending. But then also it can be like isolating if people are like, I just want to read the main story.
Well, I wish there was a way, like, is that the idea of an omnibus that they're all collect? Like, that's what I want. I
Yeah.
want to read those, but how the fuck am I gonna find that stuff? You know, like, I
Well, I
feel like,
have them all
well, but
if you
like,
want
even
them.
to pick those two things up and be like, here's volume one and volume two.
Yeah.
Like, I don't even know how the fuck I would find that, except that I happen to have a list from the Challengers book club. But even
Right.
that I found basically inaccessible. Like, I wish that I could read all of it, but it feels impossible.
Yeah, well, Marvel and DC are bad at publishing. They're
Yes.
both fundamentally bad at making comics.
Yes. It's wild.
Like the writers and artists are good for the most part, but like
As a corporation,
they're
thumbs down.
just yeah, they forget that they need to make uh their stuff reader accessible.
Yeah, like it's just it's like free money you're leaving on the table. Again, that's why I don't read X-Men. It's so hard to find an X-Men run where it's not like completely overwhelming. Who the fuck are all of these people? You're just expected to have a set of knowledge as an entry point, which is just it feels impossible to get to.
You also just have to with all of comics, if you want to get into superhero comics, you literally do just have to accept that and then you learn by reading, just like
Yeah.
anything else. And you can be like, oh, I don't know that character. Or you could Google it, or you could just be like, I'm gonna rely on the story to tell me why I need to know that. And like there are good runs. Like I mean, I didn't know about X-Men until I started reading it, and then you just kind of piece it together. But yeah, I mean, there's just some level of when you read superhero comics of just like I'm gonna read some stuff I don't know.
Hmm.
But the more you read, the more you like know about it.
Hmm.
But yeah, I mean, X-Men is hard.
I've tried. I've done some of the runs,
Yeah.
like Astonishing X-Men. I think I've read all of those. I think.
Yeah, but they rename them all the time. So like,
Yeah, I don't know. Alex Halverson gave me all of those.
is this? I think it's astonishing is the Joss Whedon stuff.
I honestly don't remember.
Yeah, and also he fucks with kitties, so I hate those ones. You don't
Fair.
fuck with my girl.
Fair.
That's my girl. Did you read anything?
I actually don't have a book to present this time. I have a video game that I've been playing. It's not Baldur's Gate, although I did sort of start that. I have been playing just a truly atrocious amount of Tetris Effect. It's so much fucking fun. Like I love a puzzle game. I don't really play video games. The controls make me nauseous a lot of time and will sometimes give me vertigo. But, like, I love a puzzle game where, like, the screen doesn't really move. It's just me moving shit around, and, like, Tetris Effect is it was made for people who do drugs. Like, the colors are fun, all of the music is weird, like, the controller vibrating has, like, a back and forth, obviously, because that's the way that it works, but it's also built to be done in VR, which I am not doing. Like, that would absolutely make me barf. But I could see how it would be super fun to do as a, like, VR experience too. But I've put a lot of hours into it. Part of it was like I started doing it because Baldur's Gate was downloading, and I was like, I have 8 hours until this fucking
Yeah.
thing downloads. And so then I just started playing Tetris and was like, maybe I just do this. Oops, I beat 27 levels in a row.
Hey. I don't really play video games that much. Like, I play Baldur's Gate, but I play it once every month and a half for like 2 days very intensely, and then I won't pick it up for another month and a half. I've never beat it. I start over. I make different characters. Like,
Yeah.
I'm not like obsessed with it like other people are. It's fine.
Yeah,
I'm not a video game person, really.
I feel like I'm not really a video game person, but I feel like part of it has always been I just don't know what video games I like.
Yeah.
And I don't
Maybe
know.
you like just puzzle games.
I
That's
think I
okay.
might just like puzzle
Lots of people
games.
just like puzzle games.
Dude, I fucking loved Felix the Reaper. That was a great puzzle game. The main character reminds me of somebody, and so I can't really play it anymore, but
I used to play those Professor Layton games that were really fun. They were all like puzzle games on your DS.
they're
Yeah,
just fun. I think a lot like people talk about like comfort games like Stardew Valley and Animal Crossing, zero appeal. They
yeah.
don't appeal to me fucking at all.
Me neither.
But the idea of a comfort game makes a lot of sense to me.
Yeah.
So that's my media focus this month is trying to figure out what my comfort stuff is. It's not just reading,
Yeah.
truthfully, because like I have been dealing with some really bad reading slumps for like the last 2 years, 3 years basically. And so like I've been reading a lot of comics, I've been reading a lot of like short stories and trying to do that. But like I need media that's outside of that that can also keep me engaged.
I am listening. I just keep thinking about how Bobby Dale likes Limit Instead, and I don't understand. It's so good. Whatever. I also just like I've everything I've ever read of Caitlin Starling's I really like. I like their writing a lot. Death of Jane Lawrence fucking rules. I love that book.
I liked it, but I also felt differently about it at the end than you did because I didn't like the end of that.
Oh, I did. This one's like more hardcore sci-fi. I don't
Too
know.
bad.
I like your stuff. I think it's really good.
Yeah, I liked the writing. I just found the ending very confusing.
Shrug.
Shrug.
Do you want to do a game
We can do one of the big stack of questions.
for a big question?
For a giant question. All right, 1 through 26.
18.
What hobby do you wish you could begin? Like if time, money, no barrier, like what's a hobby you'd be like, I would really like to do this.
Does getting a classics degree for fun count? If fucking school is free, man, I would get a classics degree immediately. I want to go to school and do dumb classic stuff and have no pressure to do anything with it afterwards. I just want to learn about all that stuff. It seems really fun, and I learn better in a structured environment. I live and die by a syllabus, so it would be better for me. Yeah, I can just read books, but it would be better for me to consume the thing if I was in school. So that is my answer, I
That's
guess.
really funny. I mean, that makes sense. That tracks for who you are as a
Yeah.
person. Like, yeah, that absolutely makes sense. That would be your hobby of education.
Yeah, I just wanna be in class and not have to pay $40,000 to learn about, like, Socrates or whatever.
Yeah, that's funny. That's a good answer.
I also like I mean, I would always be in school if I could be in school. I would also really like to get a religious degree, because I think that the way that religion, specifically the big ones, have impacted our cultural and our society is really fascinating. I'm not a religious person, but, like, just think about, like, Catholic iconography and things like that, like,
Hmm.
how it seeps into everything, and I think religion's ties to media specifically is, like, deeply fascinating to me.
That's cool.
So religious media studies? I don't know, can I make that up? I would just make up a reason. I would just go to classes. Just wanna be in school. I love being in school. That's my hobby. No money is it not money and time not a problem? That's my hobby.
I mean, that was sort of like at the community college that we went to. Like, I had like I had one of those. I think they're called like Met savings, where like if I was going to schools in Michigan and especially community colleges, it was like basically free.
Yeah, that's why I did it in high school and then I stayed afterwards because I was like, "This to finish this degree is free. I
Yeah,
should just do
and it
it."
was like I did all the degrees. I think I got 2 full associates that both would have counted for acting because I just redid a bunch of like, I went through that studio program twice, almost all the way full through, because
So funny.
I wanted to, like, rework with teachers, I wanted after I had a better sense of myself as an actor, how to actually do that, like, I needed that time, and because I didn't have to pay a shitload of money, like, I really benefited from that. Like, I don't work professionally as an actor anymore, but, like, I use that shit at Plan 9, like, being able to interact and being able to, like, have that flow on stage. I wouldn't know how to do that if I hadn't been able to spend all of that time in community college, like, learning how to make that part of my performance.
Community college rules.
It fucking
I should just
rules.
go to community college. I can afford community college.
Hell yeah. Just get a bunch of degrees from community college.
Like, I have 17. When people are like, he has 6 PhDs. No, he doesn't. But you could have 6 associate degrees. I could easily have double digits associate's
Oh,
degrees.
yes.
Maybe I'll just start doing that. That'll be my hobby.
I love that.
I mean, my hobby right now is archery.
Yeah, that's true.
It's great. I shot one. We had archery the day after the election, and I shot really good, like a really good round, and everything was really tight. And I was like, every arrow, I was like, okay, we're doing it. We're doing it. I was like, this is like what it feels like to like pitch a no hitter. Let's go. And then the last fucking arrow was just like off the target. And I was like, this is bullshit. That is the tightest grouping I've ever shot. And the last arrow is just like, get fucked.
Keeping you humble.
Yeah. So, and then after that, my like pride was shattered and all of my shots were shit, but like whatever.
You'll
Did
get
you
there.
answer?
No. I honestly, if time and money were not an object, I would get into sailing, like real sailing. Like
Tie knots.
yeah, like I grew up. My mom's dad had a sailboat, a double sail that we were on all the time until it burnt down in the winter storage when I was in like early high school. But so like I remember all that stuff a little. I kind of remember what it's like to like move a boat around. I understand a little of like tie shit down, get stuff up. But like I don't know how to really steer one anymore. Bigger ships. I would love how to learn how to sail like an actual big ass ship. Like I just think that I love being in the water, and I think that that's one of those like man's control of nature that it's timeless. Like we have been using boats for so fucking long, and like being able to sort of like learning how to shoot a gun. Like I want to be able to competently be in the water and be like I can fucking save myself and everyone around me if I have to. Just think it sounds really cool.
All right. Well, Socrates and sailing.
Hell yeah. Life's two longest goals.
Okay, that's it. That's the podcast. We hope everyone is doing as well as they can and
Yep.
taking care of themselves and their needs. And we love all of our listeners,
Yes.
especially the ones that have been there from the beginning when this is a wrestling podcast. LOL.
LOL, love you guys.
So you can find us on the internet. I'm on Blue Sky, Instagram, and Tumblr at Stella Cheeks.
You can find me on Instagram at NYD Urgency.
And we talked about the newsletter a little bit. You can sign up for our newsletter at NYD Productions at Substack. We send out a monthly newsletter. I should start reading it, I guess. But it's with like books and like memes and, we've been trying to like link some charities. Like one of the charities that I give money to is called the Night Ministry in Chicago, and they're all about getting unhomed populations access to housing and things like that. So again, pick a lane, put your money in the lane.
Absolutely. I also try in the monthly sections to include, like this month I did public policy that's open for comment. If you can do one thing during this time, learn and get comfortable with commenting on public policy, going onto websites and saying, this is a policy that I want. They're so easy to find scripts to do that. It takes very little time. And honestly, people just don't engage with that shit.
Yeah.
And so the more that you do engage positively about like fix this the one specifically that I included for November, the National Highway Transit Safety Organization is taking public policy comments up until November 18th, I think, about lowering the height of grills on trucks because it's specifically right now about reducing head to grill collisions on these like fucking bloated ass trucks. And like the more people that comment about that and say, yes, we want regulation, that one's more likely to go through. And other regulation related to these tanks is also more likely to go through. So that kind of stuff is important to pay attention to. Like we were talking about micro and macro level, like that is a micro thing that blows very quickly into macro. So that's another thing to keep in mind. Like commenting on public policy, writing your senators, calling your senators if you're comfortable doing that. We're doing it after hours so you can get voicemails. Like there are lots of small micro ways that you can figure out how to engage with that stuff too. And we like to point that out in the newsletter.
Yeah. I think that's it, right?
Yeah, I think so.
I don't know.
All right, well,
we're easy to find.
Have a Wednesday.
Have a Wednesday.